I still remember that night, the dim yellow light in the dorm room, the smell of coffee mixed with cheap cologne, the laughter that filled the air before everything turned quiet. The clink of poker chips that sounded more dangerous than I realized, and the heartbeat in my chest that refused to slow down. I was 19, full of confidence, maybe too much of it. Sitting at a small wooden table that had seen more bad decisions than textbooks, believing I could outsmart chance, believing logic could conquer luck, and that night, I lost thousands of dollars playing poker at Harvard. It didn't happen suddenly, it crept up like arrogance disguised as excitement, and I kept telling myself, just one more hand. One more round, because that's how every loss begins, not with failure but with denial. The room was filled with people who smiled like they already knew I'd lose, the kind of smiles that don't mock, but predict. I can still see the cards in my hand, shaking slightly, my brain calculating odds faster than my heart could beat. I told myself I was good at math, that I understood probability, that numbers never lied, but that night I learned something numbers never taught me, the difference between intelligence and wisdom. The first round went well. I won small pots, laughed loud, felt invincible. The second round tested me, and by the third, I was chasing my losses like a man trying to catch his own shadow. The chips kept slipping away, one stack after another, like sand through open fingers, and yet I stayed, because walking away felt harder than losing. Every card that hit the table was a story, a risk, a mirror reflecting my own overconfidence back at me. The guy across from me, calm, quiet, unreadable. He looked like life itself, patient and smiling, waiting for me to make one more wrong move. And I did. When I pushed my last pile of chips forward, I wasn't gambling with money anymore, I was gambling with pride. I looked at my hand, then at his. And in that slow motion moment before he flipped his final card, I already knew I had lost. The sound of the cards hitting the table felt like thunder in my ears, not because of the money, but because of what it meant. I had let my ego bet against reality. The laughter around the table softened, then vanished, replaced by that uncomfortable silence that follows every great mistake. The kind of smile that hides pain behind politeness, stood up, shook hands, and said, "Good game." But inside, I was falling apart. I walked out of the room with an empty wallet and a heavier mind. Every step echoed like a lesson being written into my bones. The hallway was dark, the air cold, and I remember thinking, how could I be smart enough to code machines but not wise enough to control myself? I reached my dorm, sat on the edge of my bed, and stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours. Feeling the sting of stupidity, the burn of regret, and the whisper of realization that sometimes losing money teaches you more about value than earning it ever could. I thought about the choices that led me there, the thrill, the pride, the illusion of control, and I understood, maybe for the first time, that self-control is more valuable than intelligence. The pain of loss that night wasn't financial, it was moral. It stripped away the illusion that I was untouchable. I had built my identity around being logical, disciplined, analytical, but poker didn't care about any of that. Poker wasn't about numbers. It was about people, emotions, unpredictability, things I couldn't compute, only feel. And maybe that's what I needed to learn. That night, I learned humility the hard way. Losing thousands didn't break me. It built me, piece by piece, into someone who understood that failure isn't punishment, it's preparation. I didn't know it then, but that poker table was my first real classroom. Not Harvard, not lectures, not professors, just a table, some cards, and a bruised ego. Every chip I lost that night was like tuition paid for a lesson I'd never forget. I learned that when you start believing you can't lose, that's exactly when you do. I learned that the smartest person in the room can still make the dumbest mistake if pride takes the seat of patience. I learned that control is not about predicting outcomes, it's about accepting them without letting emotion drive you off the edge. I thought about quitting poker that night, but I didn't. I kept playing later, but differently, not for money, not for thrill, but to master the part of me that craved risk without reason. Poker taught me discipline, not greed, observation, not arrogance, patience, not rush. I started studying people more than cards, listening to silences more than words, learning when to fold, not just in games but in life. Folding isn't weakness, it's wisdom. The kind that keeps you alive when pride wants to destroy you. That night changed something inside me. It humbled me, reshaped my understanding of failure. I realized that losing isn't the opposite of winning, it's the foundation of it. Because if you can't lose with grace, you'll never win with purpose. When I look back now, I laugh, not at the loss, but at the boy who thought money was a measure of confidence. I didn't know that night that real wealth comes from experience, not from what you win, but from what you learn when you lose. The irony still amuses me. I lost thousands of dollars, but I gained a lesson worth millions. And that's the funny thing about failure. It charges a high price, but the returns last a lifetime. The next morning, I woke up early, the guilt still heavy, but clarity heavier. I walked across the Harvard courtyard, leaves crunching under my shoes, the wind sharp on my face. And I promised myself that I'd never again let ego make my decisions. I'd risk, but wisely. I'd bet, but with purpose. I'd chase dreams, not illusions. The world often celebrates success stories. But behind every success are nights like that one, nights of loss, doubt, and quiet realization. No one tells you that losing can be a gift if you let it teach you. That poker night wasn't about cards or money, it was about me facing the part of myself that thought I was above consequence. It humbled me enough to listen more, to observe longer, to think twice before acting once. It taught me that emotion is the enemy of logic, and balance is the secret weapon of success. I lost money that night, yes. But I found perspective, and that was priceless. Every loss since then has reminded me of that dorm room, that table, that lesson. The cards may have changed, the stakes may have grown, but the rule remains the same: never play against your own judgment. Sometimes life deals you bad hands not to punish you, but to teach you how to play smarter. That night, when I finally turned off the lights and lay in bed, I whispered to myself, "You can lose money, but don't lose the lesson." And I never did. The pain faded, the memory didn't. It became a quiet reminder that failure is only failure if you stop learning. Years later, people often ask me about success, risk, decision-making, and I tell them this: I learned more about decision-making from losing at poker than from any classroom. Because poker, like life, isn't about playing every hand. It's about knowing which ones to fold. That single night of loss taught me patience, humility, and the value of self-restraint, qualities no degree can teach. So yes, I lost thousands of dollars at Harvard, but in that loss, I won something far greater: awareness. Awareness of how thin the line is between confidence and arrogance, between control and chaos. That awareness became my quiet companion, whispering in every risky decision that followed, reminding me to stay calm, to stay grounded, to never gamble what I can't afford to lose, not just in money, but in life, relationships, and time. When you lose big once, you start valuing small wins differently. You start noticing the beauty of patience, the strength in walking away, the peace in accepting what you can't control. That night wasn't a mistake. It was a mirror. showing me who I was and who I needed to become. And that's why I smile when I think about it, not because I'm proud of the loss, but because it became part of the story of who I am. I went to that table thinking I understood risk, but I left understanding life. So yes, I lost thousands of dollars playing poker at Harvard, but I gained the wisdom to never let numbers define my worth, to never let ego dictate my choices, and to always remember that losing money is temporary, but losing self-awareness is permanent. That night didn't break me. It built me quietly, painfully, beautifully, one bad hand at a time.